Gloria, thank you so much before we went to break, you were really explaining what's gone on with the two Michaels, with one being sentenced, the other one probably soon to be sentenced, what Canada ought to do. Let's switch gears now to Hong Kong, and obviously with your organization, you've been very passionately advocating for this. We've had you on before explaining what's going on. We just passed the 1-year anniversary of the Chinese passing of of seizing control of China, basically, and passing the new law, the national law. What has been happening in the streets in Hong Kong and in the government? Can you please share with us?
Yeah, unfortunately, the national security law has become the supreme law of Hong Kong. And the Chinese Communist Party has sent officials to Hong Kong to be directly in charge of the crackdown on Hong Kong civil society. And ever since then, there's hardly any rally or march in Hong Kong ever since then. And these laws have no checks, accountability, or limits to its application or reach. And the government has been using the law to wipe out all dissident voices. They have been arresting a lot of dissident leaders, lawmakers, civil society organizations, as well as independent media in Hong Kong in the name of subversion and collusion with foreign forces. And so I think that is why Canada Hong Kong Link and other ally groups in Canada have been advocating for the special life program to save lives of Hong Kong people under political persecution in Hong Kong. Yeah, and even though open work permit, open study permit policy have been announced by our government, but there are still extreme challenges for Hong Kong people to leave Hong Kong with the closing down of border and stricter exit policy implemented since August 1st. And therefore, we need to have more linear humanitarian measures to allow people to leave Hong Kong on special travel documents.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit more in a moment about what Canada should be doing there as well. But let's talk about the crumbled democracy that was Hong Kong. It was a beautiful democracy, and now it's no more. And you've explained how there's been the stamping out of any dissidents. Recently, the Hong Kong Civil Human Rights Front, the CHRF, has been disbanded, and this was like kind of the active voice against communist China for 20 years, the dissidents, if you will. Tell us what happened there.
Yeah, I think in the past 2 weeks, the Professional Teachers Union, as well as the Civil Human Rights Front, have both disbanded themselves after they have been criticized for potentially violating the national security law. They have been doing so in order to avoid being raided, arrested, or having their assets being frozen. And these two organizations are very well respected and very well supported institutions in Hong Kong. So they're the pillars of Hong Kong civil society. So with them being disbanded, that means there won't be any group or individual being visible and also powerful enough to hold the regime accountable.
Well, like you've said, that it seems to be no more protests, no more rallies. Now we have the longest kind of serving Civil Human Rights Front. The Hong Kong Civil Rights Front has now disbanded. And I understand why, like you said, the freezing of assets, the raiding, you would be arrested and thrown into prison and subjected to a court similar to what Michael Spavor just had. But if every single player in the democratic sphere goes away, and I understand why, there's a lot of pressure there, there's threat of prison and gosh knows what else, what does that mean for the pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong?
Well, with the silencing of dissident voices in Hong Kong, that means Hong Kong will be turned into just another mainland Chinese city, a big prison without walls, where people there could be arbitrarily arrested, charged, and convicted for crimes they have not committed. And in for a long period of time until they become insane or even die. The Nobel winner Liu Xiaobo's personal experience was a typical example of such treatment. So Hong Kong people have never been afraid to express their dissent and aspiration publicly and collectively. So the crackdown could disrupt the opposition in the short run. However, I do have faith that it will foster even more creative, resilient organizing, as well as tactics in the long run.